Today I'm excited to share an update on my journey of growing 100 pounds of food in my 21 square foot garden. Since my last check-in, I've integrated my summer crops, tomato, winter squash, and green beans, right into my spring plantings. I've also harvested my radishes and preserved them for future meals. In this video, I'll take you through my entire process, from harvesting fresh lettuce and radishes in the garden, to the kitchen where I'll show you how I preserve those delicious radishes. Plus, I'll give you a tour of the garden, share how much I've harvested so far, and discuss whether I'm on track to hit my 100-pound goal, along with some of the successes and challenges I've met along the way. Before adding any new plants to my garden, I always start by harvesting any crops that need it. For this garden, the lettuce needed to be harvested. I harvest lettuce by pulling the outer leaves of the plant, leaving the center to grow and continue maturing, rather than waiting for the whole head of lettuce to be mature and ready for harvest. Harvesting this way allows me to get more lettuce over a longer period of time. This picking yielded just under half a pound, which is equivalent to one of those small clamshells of lettuce that you can get at the grocery store. I'm planting my tomatoes in the same square foot where my radishes are currently growing. When I seeded my radishes this spring, I left the center free for tomatoes, allowing me to harvest radishes while I waited for warmer temperatures. I'm planting 10 tomatoes, 6 Amish paste tomatoes, which are a great sauce and salsa tomato, 3 Sweet Million cherry tomatoes, which are a classic red cherry tomato, and 1 Berry's Crazy Cherry, a prolific yellow cherry tomato that I'll add a pop of color. Earlier this spring, when I planted out my green onion seedlings, I left the center free to plant acorn squash. The idea is that the tomatoes will fill the vertical space while the acorn squash grows underneath, helping to suppress weeds and retain moisture in the soil, much like the Three Sisters method of planting. Meanwhile, as the squash germinates and begins growing, I cover the soil with compost as mulch. The soil in this bed is very clay-like, and if it dries out, it becomes rock hard, which the plants don't love. Improving soil is a slow, long game in my garden. After I've covered the garden with compost, I added the support system for my tomatoes. I like to use tomato spirals for support. They work well for me because I like to keep my tomatoes pruned to a single stem. I also appreciate that I don't need to bring any clips or string with me when I go out to maintain my tomatoes. I simply twist the tomato stem around the spiral. About a week after the summer plantings went in, the radishes were ready for harvest. I did 3 radish harvests over the course of the week, because some of the radishes were ready and starting to get eaten by bugs, while others needed a little bit more time to finish up. Radishes grow so quickly that a couple days really does make a difference. The total yield of radishes from this garden is 2.08 pounds. I had estimated a yield of 4 pounds, so I came 2 pounds shy of my estimate, which is disappointing. A couple factors played into this lower yield. I had used a pink variety of radish seed that I'd had around for a while, and the germination wasn't great. Then I went and replanted with a purple variety that didn't really form any good roots, it just went to seed. I believe this significantly reduced my radish yield. 2 pounds of radishes is more than my family can eat before they all go bad. We only really eat them on salad. I'm going to quick pickle them and store them in the fridge so that we can use them all summer long. To start, I prepare a brine by combining water, sugar, vinegar, and salt and bringing it to a boil. While the brine heated, I thinly sliced all the radishes. Next, I packed the thinly sliced radishes into clean, warm, wide-mouthed jars. The wide-mouthed jars make it easier to remove the radish slices without having to fight with the jar shoulders. Once the brine reached a boil, I poured it over the radishes and secured the lids on the jars. I allowed the jars to cool to room temperature before storing them in the fridge. The radishes will be ready to use after pickling for 24 hours, and they should store in the fridge for up to 3 months. Now that there's more space underneath the tomatoes with the radishes being harvested, I added some pole green beans that'll use the tomatoes and the tomato spirals as support. Now, how is the garden growing and what is our total harvest so far? The garden has officially entered its jungle season, with the summer plantings beginning to mature and the spring plantings on their way out. The tomatoes are thriving, although they did struggle with light for a little bit, while the potatoes in the raised beds behind them blocked some of the sun. All the tomato varieties are now producing fruit. The acorn squash have germinated, but are struggling due to insufficient light. The tomatoes are casting more shade than I anticipated, and I realized I should have planted fewer green onions around the plants. The green onions have been smothering the plants out a little bit. However, with some tomato pruning and most of the green onions harvested, the light issue has been resolved. I plan to give the squash a boost by giving them a little feed of a fertilizer. So far, I've harvested 1.47 pounds of green onions, with a few more in the garden left to be harvested. I expect to reach my goal of 2 pounds of green onions. The lettuce has been very successful, with a total harvest of 7.29 pounds. However, it is starting to go to seed and will need to be removed. I set a goal of 6 pounds of lettuce, so I am pleased that I have exceeded that target, especially since I fell short on my radish goal. I harvested 2.08 pounds of radishes, which is 2 pounds short of my 4-pound goal. The carrots are beginning to form their roots. My harvest assistant performed a pull test, and the plants are growing well. I will leave them in the garden a little bit longer to get a little bit larger before I harvest the whole crop. The green beans have germinated and are beginning to climb the tomatoes and their spirals, and I believe we should start seeing flowers soon. The total harvest from this garden is 10.84 pounds. I'm excited about the upcoming harvest of tomatoes, winter squash, green beans, and carrots. I also look forward to starting fall crops of beets and turnips in the coming weeks. Thank you for following along, and I will see you in the next update.